Hi.
Hello, hello.
Oh my gosh. Okay, what flavor of LaCroix are we drinking?
Let's see.
Okay.
Let me put my big ass bag down. It is Raz Cranberry.
Okay. Not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. I don't know if I've had this flavor before, but it's good.
Is it good? Any LaCroix fans in the house? All right. A little bit. We'll take it. We'll take it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I've never actually tried one, but maybe now you've inspired me, and this weekend will be the weekend.
If you're a fan of like heavily flavored drinks, you'll be unimpressed.
Okay.
The way people have described LaCroix and other like not sweetened flavored sparkling water is it tastes like, like if it's, raz cranberry, it tastes like somebody who just ate raspberries and cranberries burped in your face.
Oh, lovely. That is very polite.
It tastes like you heard someone whisper in one room over, raspberry, cranberry.
I love it.
And that's what it tastes like.
I think I'm sold. Now I want.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to try it. If it's okay with you, do you mind if we play musical chairs? I feel like you should sit here. This is more central, and I'll sit there.
care where I
Yeah,
sit.
we're gonna rearrange the stage, everybody. All right, there we go. All right, ta-da! Musical chairs.
Do you need your phone?
Yeah, for time purposes. Thank you so much. All right. Anyway, have you been to this city before? Do you get to?
I have not. I've been to Ohio once before, years ago, but I don't remember which city it was. I know it wasn't Columbus, but somewhere in Ohio. I think it was somewhere like in a very rural area because there was like nothing around.
So, and obviously you do a lot of these conventions, and most of the time, you guys are so busy. It's typically you go from the airport to the hotel to, then back home. But when you do have a chance, is there something that you do like to try to do when you visit new cities?
My favorite thing to do is to try new restaurants. So I always love getting recommendations for, from the locals, what their favorite places to eat are, and trying some of those places out. That's my favorite thing to do.
Awesome. So when you guys go to visit her at her booth later today, when you go meet her in person, we'll take some recommendations.
Yes, tell me where to eat, because I love to eat.
Same, girl, same. So I kind of wanted to ask about, growing up, what were some of your fandoms? Were you into anime, comic books? What were you like as a kid?
So I feel so boring that I've never really been a part of any fandom. As like a little kid, what was I into? I mean, anything girly, so like Barbie, Polly Pockets. But I'm from the generation where the Polly Pockets were actually like the teeny tiny like choking hazard, not like eventually. I don't know. I wonder if it's because too many kids were choking on them.
It's a choking hazard.
They like made them bigger.
Right, life size.
Yeah. But I loved everything princessy and girly. But I didn't watch a whole lot of TV growing up. Like I grew up without cable, and so the only shows I had access to were on like PBS Kids. So I loved like Arthur and Doug and Pepper Ann.
Pepper Ann, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, you're like bringing me back.
So cool.
But I think it's interesting that you say all these things because I feel like now there's the resurgence of, these are the things that we love again. Yeah. Barbie is like amazing. I'm sure Polly Pocket's going to be next. What was the guy's version? It was like Mighty Max or something?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. That one was fun too.
I'm not familiar with the guy version.
So what was your first venture into this whole incredible world of all things anime? How did you become part of it?
It happened very coincidentally. I wanted to be an actress in general from the time I knew what an actress was. It's all I ever wanted to be. And so it was probably around 10 years old that my parents finally relented because I'd been begging them for a while to put me in an acting class. So they finally gave in and signed me up for a class. And the one that they happened to sign me up for, I think just because it was close by to where we lived, was specifically acting for the camera. So for, like live action film kind of thing. So that's, I loved it. And I continued all of my training specifically in on-camera acting. And so I trained pretty intensively from when I was 10 all throughout like my teenage years and took classes into my early 20s. And I signed on with a talent agency when I was 10. I'm still with that same agency to this day, which is crazy. That's kind of unheard of. Usually people will, bounce around and experiment with different agencies, but they became like family for me. But because I live in Dallas, Texas, there's a lot of voiceover work there. There's a lot more voiceover work there than there is on-camera work. So I still do both. But pretty quickly after I signed on with the agency, they asked if I would also be open to auditioning for voiceover stuff as well as on-camera. And I was like, oh, yeah, I never even thought about, I was 10. I never thought about, voiceover, but yeah, any kind of acting I'm thrilled to do. The anime stuff specifically, I was sent on my first audition over at what was then Funimation, now it's Crunchyroll. I was 17 when I first auditioned there, and very quickly after my first audition there, the anime dubbing became my bread and butter acting work. So I still do everything else. I still do on camera. I still do voiceover for other things outside of anime, like, video games, commercials, etc. But the anime stuff, because of where I live, that's the bulk of the work. So it wasn't something I sought out specifically. I barely really knew what anime was when I first auditioned there because I didn't grow up with it. I'd never watched an anime show before. Probably the only anime shows I'd ever heard of were Dragon Ball, Pokemon, and Sailor Moon. But again, I'd only ever I'd heard of them. I'd never even watched them before. So it was a whole new world to me. And so when I started working at Funimation, it opened my eyes to the wonderful world of anime, and I had no idea that there were so many shows and there were so many types of shows within anime. Like there are so many genres within anime. I had no idea. I had no idea that there was a whole fandom, and even back then, that was over 15 years ago. Obviously, the fandom has exploded quite a bit since then, which is great and I love. But even back then, I was surprised. I had no idea that there was there were such passionate anime fans, and I was like, this is so cool. I had no idea. It was a new world for me.
Yeah. You didn't know about it then. You certainly know about it now.
Know about it now.
And it's interesting, it's like you mentioned, Dallas kind of is the hub for all things anime. It's like if you want zombies, you go to Atlanta. You want anime actresses, you go to Dallas. What has your experience been like working with Crunchyroll? And also, whenever I hear it, I just get very hungry. I think it's the greatest name of all time. What has your experience been like working with the company?
It's been great. I mean, they very quickly became family, and for the, I know it was probably different on like the business side of things, on like the corporate side of things, but at least for the actors, it was a really seamless transition from Funimation to it becoming Crunchyroll. It was all the same directors that we had always worked with and everything. And yeah, I mean, some of those directors I've been working with since I first started back when I was in high school, which is crazy. So yeah, they're like family. So going there is really, it's like a second home. It's in a different building now than when I first started all those years ago. But the old building was, and then the new building is now, like it feels like a second home. So I feel really, really lucky, and I'm so grateful that that is the type of work environment I walk into. It's a very welcoming. I walk in and I never know who I'm gonna be seeing up at the studio that day, but it's always so fun because I usually see at least one or two people who I hadn't seen in a while, because the voice actors, generally speaking, record individually. We record one at a time in the booth, and so the only time we really would see the other voice actors up at the studio is just kind of running into them in the hallway, like if we're both getting water at the same time or we're both walking into a session at the same time, in different studios. And so it's always just a fun thing to see, like, oh, who am I going to run into today? And sometimes it's someone like I haven't seen in 2 years or something. So, but yeah, it's one big family, which is great.
So you mentioned, obviously, there's incredible directors, and a lot of the time, some of these directors are part of the shows as well. Are there any directors that you personally really, really enjoy working with?
Yes, for sure. All the love to all of the directors. This doesn't mean that I don't love the ones that I'm don't come to top of mind that I'm not mentioning, but some of my favorites are probably Mike McFarland. I think he's one of the best directors, just period, of all time. Like, not only is he really enjoyable to work with and is a great guy, but he's just so good at what he does. So if you don't know, he was the director on Attack on Titan. He's the director for Chainsaw Man. He was the director for Tokyo Ghoul. So a lot of, really big name titles. He's the director for the current season of My Hero Academia. And yeah, he's fantastic. He's a master at casting his shows. I think his casting choices are always spot on. And he really is what we call an actor's director, where he really understands the actor and what our process is and how to articulate a direction in a way that will actually get us to give the performance that he's looking for, if that makes sense. Because sometimes I've worked with some directors that struggle to clearly communicate what it is they're wanting out of you. And sometimes we're left like scratching our head like, I don't know what that means, or they seem to contradict themselves or whatever, but he's just so good at what he does. Another favorite director of mine would be Chris George. He's one of the ones that I've worked with. I think actually he was in my very first Funimation session ever. He wasn't the director, because back then he was an ADR engineer, but he was the engineer on the session. And yeah, so I've known him literally since I was 17, and he's just the best. He's so much fun. He's so sweet. Yeah. Awesome. But I love them all.
So I'm very distracted because obviously we have these beautiful things above our head, and look how like cute your characters are. They're so cute.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of cute ones.
Yeah, but I think the cutest of all time is from Chainsaw Man. I just like cannot get enough. So I want to know, like, what is it like being part of the Chainsaw Man franchise? Obviously, like, talk about an explosion of the show.
Yeah, I was so excited to get to be a part of the show, and I was really, really hoping to specifically get the role of Pochita, because he's just so cute, and they just nailed it with the character design, and so you just can't help but love him, and he's just so cute. And I thought it would be a fun challenge too. I've never played a dog before. I've done plenty of like creatures, but I've never done a dog, and so for the audition, I really had to experiment for the first time with making dog noises and barking and trying to make it sound as realistic as I could. And I wasn't sure going into it if I could do it. And so it just took some playing around and experimenting. And I was over the moon, so excited when I found out that I got cast. And even though we don't get to see a whole lot of Pochita in the show, he just kind of shows up sporadically. It's still such a treat anytime I have gotten to record for the character.
No, that's so awesome. And I love walking around conventions and seeing people like dressed up from like all the different shows, and especially like Chainsaw Man. So let's say that you came to a show, let's say not as a guest, as a fan. Who would you want to cosplay as?
I have no idea. So again, I feel like I'm such a boring person that I'm like I'm not a part of like any fandom. People will also ask me, what's your favorite anime, either that you've been in or not, either way, what's your favorite? And I used to kind of dodge the question because I felt like I couldn't be honest, because I was worried that somehow people would take it personally if I told them that I don't like watch anime for fun. But a couple of years ago, I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. I can be honest, and people have taken it very well. That yeah, I don't watch anime, and the reason why is not because I have anything against it. Obviously, like that's most of my work is in anime. I have to love it, and I do, and I love working in it. And I figured out the reason why. Because I tried sitting down once I was first introduced to it after I'd started working in it. I was like, well, let me sit down and try to like watch these shows, because I'd never, been introduced to it before. And I realized I can't take myself out of the work side of it, because the work was my first introduction to it. I can't separate it the same way that I can like, a live action show or something. I don't know how to remove like to remove that aspect from it. And so when if I sit down and watch anime, first of all, I'm hearing all the people I know really well. And I'm like, oh, that's Caitlin, or, that's Erin. Like, oh, they sound great. And I'm so focused on the line reads and seeing, like, how well the dialogue fits the flaps and stuff like that. I can't just, like, take myself out of it and actually, like, immerse myself in the story, which is a bummer, but it is what it is.
I mean, you could be Polly Pocket. So there you go. Next time you get a come as a fan, you can be Polly Pocket.
Polly Pocket, I love it.
Yeah, we're bringing it back around.
Because I'm a pretty tiny person, so.
Yeah, there you go. And I was going to say, maybe when y'all ask your questions, they can also recommend a show, for you as well. So if we want to get to questions from y'all, like I did mention, we do have a microphone located over yonder. I know it could be a little bit intimidating, but she's here to answer whatever questions you guys may have. All right, we got some willing victims. All right, you're up first, my friend. What's your name?
I'm Diego.
Hi, Diego.
I guess I could ask, like, what is your most underrated work, or like something that you say, I wish people recognize me for this more?
Oh, it's so hard to choose. That's a great question. But yeah, it's hard to choose because I feel like there's actually, the vast majority of any voice actor's work is stuff that like most people don't talk to you about. It's like there's like select few that are like, the big name shows that most people come and talk to you about. And so there are a lot of shows I've been a part of that I'm like, oh, this is great. I wish it got more attention. But let's see, some that like immediately come to mind. And not that like nobody comes and talks to me about this, but it's far from being like a top show. It's one of these super long titles. Why Rayliana Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion. So it's a romance, and it's based off of a Korean manhwa, and I was unfamiliar with it when I got cast in it, but I play Rayliana, and Ian Sinclair, who I adore, anything that he's in, he's fabulous. He plays my love interest, and he's so good in it. And I really, really loved getting to be a part of that show. It's only been one season so far. They haven't announced any subsequent seasons, but there's a lot more to the story based on like the manhwa, so I hope they make more. But yeah, I really loved playing that character because she's. It's not super often that I get to play female characters that have a lot of depth to them. Yes, she's beautiful, but she doesn't take shit from anybody. She's sassy. She's really smart. She's book smart. She's tough. But then she has the like soft side to her as well. So I just loved that character. Let's see, another one that comes to mind. This one was a really, really long time ago, earlier in my career, is a show called Shangri-La. Not to be confused with the current show that I'm in called Shangri-La Frontier. It's a completely separate thing. But Shangri-La, I played the lead in that show. Another badass female character. Her name was Kuniko Hojo. And she's like a teenage girl that's just super brave, and I love those strong female characters. It's always a treat to get to play those. It doesn't happen super often. But actually, Shangri-La Frontier, I should mention that one too. So this is a current one. So I play a bunny with a Boston accent in that show, which never in a million years did I ever think I would get to
anime.
Right? Like, I never thought in an anime I would get to voice a character, a bunny nonetheless, with a Boston accent, but that's been a blast. So check that out. There are so many others, but those are the ones that immediately come to mind.
Great question. And do you have a recommendation that you think Lindsay should watch?
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't think about that.
That's totally fine.
Ooh, another one that comes to mind, SSSS. Gridman. It's just one season, so it's easy, but that one's really cool. Anyway.
Great question. Go ahead. What's your name?
My name is John Leone. I love your Nagisa.
Oh, thank you so much.
I absolutely love your Nagisa.
Thank you. Nagisa is one of my favorite characters I've voiced. He's very near and dear to my heart, very special to me. I always loved him, but I've grown to love him even more over the years because I would say of all the characters I've voiced, that's probably the one that people come up and say to me the most that was like a character that had like a big impact on them or helped them through a hard time. And so learning that it's a character that's special to so many people, it's become even more special to me.
I actually have a Nagisa Nendoroid.
You do? Oh, that's awesome.
Yep, I actually have him standing next to Karma. They're both like holding like their knives like this.
Oh, that's awesome.
And like
that's fun.
in the other hand, Nagisa is holding Carl Sensei. Yes. So I'm an aspiring voice actor. I already took one class with my teacher Lisa Justwain, and I'm taking another one with Danny Jacobs. Cool. Yeah, he did King Julian from the Penguins of Madagascar.
Cool. Oh, that's so cool. Awesome.
Thank you. And so is there any like piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's trying to to get into voiceover, get into like anime dubbing and like all like that cool stuff?
Yeah, I mean you already are on the right track. That's always what I tell people to do first is to take classes. I think it's also really helpful to take acting classes that aren't specific to voiceover. And the reason I think that that's helpful is if you have that training doing scene work with other actors in the scene with you, and you're reacting off of them, and you're creating that chemistry with the other actors in the scene, I find that it's easier to recreate that magic when you're recording in the booth by yourself. Yeah. Because that's the thing is with voiceover, not always, but most of the time, especially in dubbing, they record each actor one at a time, and so you don't have the other actor to play off of and to react off of, and to have that that chemistry that happens more naturally when the other actor is physically there with you. And I've found in my own experience, and I've heard other actors say this too, that it's easier to recreate that magic in the booth by yourself, and still make it sound like you have that intimacy with the other actor, even if they're not there. If you've had the experience of actually doing it with other actors in a scene, whether it can be on camera scene work or it can be stage like theater. Either way, that I think is probably my number one tip that I think would be really, really helpful, because it's something that it just changes your performance, I think. It adds another layer to it that is really hard to get without having that training and practice doing that scene work with other actors physically. Yeah.
Best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Thank you so
Best of
much.
luck.
Thank you. I also like your hair too. Thank you.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Thank you. Genetic. All right. Hey, what's your name? What's your question?
Roberto LeBron or Roberto.
Hi, Roberto.
Hi.
Good to see you again.
Thank you. You mind sharing the experience of voicing Maya Fey in Ace Attorney?
Oh my gosh, it was so fun working on that show because the show is so silly and over the top and ridiculous that there was never a session that I wasn't like cracking up throughout it, especially because all the other actors in that show are just so funny. And so if I was anytime I was lucky enough to be one of the last actors to record on an episode, I would get to hear what the other actors had already done and recorded for the episode. And there were so many times where I would have to like redo a take because I couldn't get the line out because I was laughing too hard at what another actor, like Eric Vale in particular, he's just so funny. Because he would drop a lot of bombs too. This was back in the day when, before they put the kibosh on that. So dropping a bomb, for those that don't know, what that means is when an actor is recording a line, they will purposely change the line up to say something like, stupid, ridiculous, yeah, crass usually. A lot of times it's like poop and fart jokes. It's like very immature stuff. And the director and audio engineer will save that audio file to then play without warning for like the next actor that comes in to record. So if that actor plays a character that's in a scene with the previous actor, you have those previously recorded lines to react off of, and so they'll play the audio for the first time for the. I'm not explaining this well. So yeah, for the next person when they're like recording for that scene, and they're like ready to react off of like what they think would be the correct lines, because we have the script there that we see what people are supposed to be saying, and then like without warning we'll hear the audio of Eric or whoever saying something ridiculous and crass and or just going into the mic. And yeah, it was always funny and a good time. Since then, the powers that be have officially said we are not allowed to do that anymore. So it's not done anymore. But back in the day, we did it a lot, and it was pretty fun and pretty funny. And in that show in particular, we did it a lot because Kyle Phillips was the director for that show. And he's so much fun, and he's a funny guy, and he was very into that. He even put together some blooper reels, and I think it's still on YouTube. You can find it. It's pretty funny stuff.
Great question. All right, we got about 5 minutes left, so let's do these final 2 questions. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Ricky, and I guess what my question is, it kind of relates to primarily Nagisa, but then your other roles as well. Sure. Do you find that there is any kind of noticeable difference with your performance or how you interpret it when you're playing a male character versus a female character? Because, obviously female actresses have voiced young male characters before, but I don't know, just being like the main character for that particular show, what's your personal take? How does it compare to your other female roles that you've done?
Yeah, so I mean, the main difference, perhaps this is obvious, is the type of voice that I use. So for Nagisa in particular, the director of season 1, Joel McDonald, he was the one who cast me in the show. And I did an audition I don't know if they held auditions for the show in general. I'm not sure, because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, depending on how much time they have. But I was really, really nervous because when I was cast in the show at that point, I had voiced boy characters before, but never like a prominent character in anything. And so I was nervous about it, and I wasn't super confident that it was going to sound very good. But sweet Joel, he had faith. And he wanted the voice of the character to sound more masculine than it sounded in Japanese. So oftentimes the director wants, I would say most of the time, the director wants the English voice to sound pretty close to how it sounds in Japanese. But in this particular instance, he wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction. He was like, we're still obviously having a woman voice the character so that it still has some feminine quality to it, since the character obviously gets mistaken for a girl a lot. But he wanted it to sound more masculine than it did in the Japanese, because in the Japanese it literally just sounds like a girl with kind of a low register voice. And he wanted it to sound a little bit more convincing as a boy, since Nagisa literally is a boy and identifies as a boy and all of that. So he wanted me to put like a kind of a more gravelly sound to it. So it's something we kind of had to work on, because it wasn't something that at the time came super easily to me. But I'm so grateful for working on that show for a lot of reasons, but partially because I now feel so much more comfortable doing boy voices and voicing male characters. because of that show, because it gave me so much practice doing a boy voice. It didn't come easily to me initially. As far as like how I approach a character, in terms of like outside of just the voice, but just like the performance and line reads, I don't really approach it super differently for a female versus a male character, other than, you know what, actually now that I think about it, because I haven't really thought about this before, it was interesting. When I first started voicing boy characters, I would get frustrated with myself because even though I would put make my voice sound different, I was still finding that the way I was saying words had this intangible feminine quality to it, and I couldn't pinpoint what it was. I'm like, yeah, I'm making my voice sound lower, but it still sounds feminine, and it took practice of like literally like I would be like, I'm a boy, 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 and like try to get myself into that mindset and like really pretend like I'm a boy. And I now feel like I've pinpointed what it is. I can't describe what it is, but I now like, it's literally like you say the words differently, but I can't even tell you how. It's a weird thing. There's a way. And again, not to say that like now I can do it to where like, no one would know it was a girl voicing it. Obviously, like you can still tell, but you can tell that it's at least supposed to be a boy, if that makes sense. There's some intangible masculine quality that I'm able to give it now that I wasn't initially.
Okay.
So great question,
Yeah,
because I
very
never
good
really
question.
thought about that before.
Glad to hear it. Thank you very much.
Great question. All right, our final question. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hi. I was just curious if there's certain genres of anime that are more challenging to voice over and which ones are more easier.
Yes, definitely, actually. The more challenging ones for me, I think probably most voice actors would say this, would be the ones that contain more action because you have to yell more. So by far the most challenging thing is just keeping your voice in a healthy condition and sounding clear and not losing your voice. And the shows where you have to yell and scream a lot, those are going to be more challenging in that regard. And so for those, I have to just be really careful to, make sure I'm staying super hydrated and taking swigs of water in between each take. And I'm also very firm about making sure they don't schedule me for longer than like an hour or two of recording at a time. And speaking up if I have to cut a session short because I can feel my voice starting to weaken, I will say it, because I've gotten myself in so much trouble before, like feeling like I need to just power through. And then I end up being out of commission for months because I pushed myself too far, and I would like essentially kind of injure my vocal cords, and then I'd be, out of work for months. And so now I'm very clear on the fact that it is much better to just end the session early, and you can come back in a couple of days. They much prefer that you do that. But yeah, that's the more challenging thing is just when you have to yell and scream more.
Okay, thank you.
These are great questions. Those are really good. So before we wrap this up, don't forget, when you go to meet her later at our booth, food and recommendations.
Yes,
please. I wanted to see if it's okay with you. I believe we do have a photographer. We're going to
Yes.
take a big group picture with
Absolutely, I would love
everybody.
that.
So y'all are going to be in it too. So if you guys want to come, do we have them come towards the stage? Okay, if you guys want to come towards the stage very carefully.
And
Just
I
not
also
on
want to
the
say,
stage.
before I forget, any of you guys that had other questions that you either didn't get a chance to ask, or you just don't love like getting up to a mic in front of people, but you had questions, please feel free, come to my table and ask questions. You do not have to buy anything to come and talk to me. That is not a requirement. I love meeting all of you regardless.
So sweet.